And then I'm going to show you 5 memes that more accurately reflects what's going on in Israel, between the Israel and the Palestinians, than the mainstream media.
Keep it 100, I be feeling like Campbell soup over white rice, baked chicken with the skin on, yeah, Lowry's with black pepper, I'm fully seasoned with that.
What's good, 100 Sons? It's your boy Dre, and welcome to my channel, Keep It 100 Dre. So as we all know, Israel is committing a genocide against Palestinians. It's the largest open air prison in the entire world. They're an apartheid state. They're evicting Palestinians from their land on the West Bank. And they're bombing buildings in Palestine. So that's something that most people are well aware of at this point. Israel's committing war crimes and many other atrocities against Palestine. The issue I really have is how the media is covering this. So Brian Stelter of CNN, he covered the Israel-Palestine conflict in the worst way possible. So Brian Stelter, if you don't know, he's one of the worst journalists on CNN or anywhere, period. He's absolutely terrible. A few years ago, he lied about Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan, and it got about 1 like and 92,000 dislikes. So yeah, that guy. So the reason why I'm showing you this clip of Brian Stelter covering the Israel-Palestine conflict is because not every media outlet is covering it this way. Not every mainstream media outlet is covering this way, but he's representative of how it has been covered over the years in the media. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how Brian Stelter covered the Israel-Palestine conflict and is covering it. And then I'm going to show you 5 memes that more accurately reflects what's going on in Israel, between the Israel and the Palestinians, than the mainstream media. So let's watch this Brian Stelter terrible video.
Let me also show you, Fred, how journalism advocacy groups are reacting to this incredibly unusual move by the Israeli forces. Here is the executive director of the Committee to Protect Journalists, Joel Simon, saying today, "We demand that the Israeli government provide a detailed and documented justification for this attack, given the possible violation of international humanitarian law." I think the obvious question that comes to mind is, what were the Israelis supposed to do? If they are sure, if they had intelligence that can be vetted, that Hamas was using these news bureaus as a shield, as a hiding place, what were the Israelis supposed to do? Conversely, you're going to hear a lot of calls, as you see from the Committee to Protect Journalists, from people saying, show the evidence, prove that there was something happening here, and that these were not just journalists and civilians inside this 12-story building, Fred.
So Brian Stelter is a stenographer for those in power, rather than being adversarial towards those in power like a journalist is supposed to be. He's absolutely terrible. So I got a lot more to say on this, but before I do so, I'm going to show you the 5 memes that more accurately represent what's going on than how Brian Stelter just covered it just now. So this first meme represents how Israel has expanded so much since 1946 that they eventually kicked Palestine of their land, similar to how America did with the Native Americans. So I guess that's why Americans support Israel today in their efforts. There's more reasons than that, but we'll talk about that shortly. So I'm not sure if many of you know, Israel is a relatively new state. It didn't exist until May 14th, 1948. Prior to that, it was pretty much all Palestine. And now, Palestine almost doesn't exist anymore, and Israel owns the entire land. The next meme. U.S. Security Council members on calling for Israel-Palestine ceasefire. So all of these countries support a ceasefire, while the U.S., they don't. So these countries are China, Estonia, France, India, Ireland, Kenya, Mexico, Niger, I'm not sure. I've heard it pronounced both ways. Norway, Russia, St. Vincent, Tanzania, the United Kingdom, and Vietnam, while the US opposes it. This next meme, it says Israel committing genocide against Palestinians, while the US looks the other way because they're fine with it. It also says the UN looked the other way, but the UN has called what's going on and the genocide this has the UN looking the other way as well, but the UN has called what's going on a genocide, and they have acknowledged that it's an apartheid state. So I wouldn't say this is completely accurate, but it's much more accurate than Brian Stelter's coverage. Next meme. So on the bottom it says, "Mind if I sit?" The white is Israel, the green is Palestine. So the little white dots in 1946, Israel barely there, doesn't really exist as of yet. And then you see the white expanding. I just need to stretch my legs. You know, a person stretch their legs, they're expanding themselves. Then the next meme from that was a UN plan. It was pretty much a split of the state between Israel and Palestine. That's what was proposed by the UN. So it's Israel stretching their legs. So it's relatively fair. You know, it's almost a 50-50 split. Then the next part of the meme, it's from 1949 to 1967. They stretch their legs a little more. So they pretty much own the entire state. And then now, well, that's from 2012, and they have expanded even more since then. Israel has expanded their settlements even more since then. It says, "The fuck you doing in my house?" So again, we can see in the past, it was Palestinians' land. Now Israel, they're saying, "Hey, what are you doing in my house? Get out." Just like what America did. White supremacy all over the world. And this final meme, it pretty much describes the way Brian Stelter covered this conflict. It has CNN and the BBC. They're focusing so much on Israel. It's an Israeli baby crying, while ignoring the dead Palestinians in Gaza, the many dead children. So Brian Stelter, he said Israel's defending themselves. What else could they do? While ignoring Israel bombed Palestine and killed so far at least 42 children in their latest airstrike. So here's the thing. It's said that America and Russia has such an impact on our politics, while they ignore the impact of Israel on our politics. Joe Biden has also said Israel has the right to defend themselves. I'll play a quick clip for you.
My national security staff and defense staff has been in constant contact with their counterparts in the Middle East, not just with the Israelis, but also with everyone from the Egyptians to the Saudis to the Emiratis, etc. And I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu not too long ago. I'll be putting out a statement very shortly on that. My expectation and hope is that this will be closing down sooner than later. But Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory. But I had a conversation for a while with the Prime Minister of Israel, and I think that my hope is that we'll see this coming to conclusion sooner than later. Thank you.
Furthermore, there's 27 states that have anti-BDS laws on the books, which is a violation of the First Amendment. BDS is boycott, divestment, sanction. And it affects 78% of the population. That's a far bigger impact than Russia or China has on our country. But they don't talk about the impact of Israel on our politics. AIPAC is an extremely powerful political organization, but that's not talked about. If you call it out, you're called anti-Semitic, like how Ilhan Omar was called anti-Semitic for it. Just to touch on the Russia point a bit more, there was a story that came out a few weeks ago that said Russia hacked into our oil system, cyber hacked, and that's why there were oil shortages. So I didn't cover that story for a reason, because one, I didn't believe, we have no reason to believe what the media reports on Russia. They're stenographers for power. So I didn't report on it. So now, as it turned out, it wasn't Russia at all. It was cyber criminals called DarkSide. They're a cyber crime group that develop and sell ransomware software to criminals that carry out cyber attack. And it had nothing to do with Russia at all. So I may do a full story on that. You can let me know in the comments if you want me to do a story. But we have no reason to believe what the media reports about Russia or China, because they've lied about it way too many times. The initial Russiagate story was Russia hacked into our election machines and changed votes. That's what was reported on the mainstream media in the beginning. Now they said, oh, they bought Facebook ads which swayed the election. But people don't catch the flip. That sleight of hand trick that they're trying to do, so they can never be wrong. So it was first Russians hacked into the election machines, but when that got disproven, they said, oh, they bought Facebook ads that swayed the outcome of the election. And here's the thing, Russia spent a few hundreds of thousands of dollars in ads in the 2016 election, while Hillary Clinton spent over $1 billion. So she spent over 1,000 times more than the Russians did. So if you outspend the Russians 1,000 to 1, you still couldn't win the election. That means you're the worst politician in history. Even worse than Donald Trump. He won. Give me $100,000 in ad spend. Give me $1 billion in ad spend. I'd probably beat Hillary Clinton in an election. I'd beat Donald Trump too. And my channel would be pretty large at this point. So yeah, those memes more accurately describe the situation in Israel-Palestine than the way most of mainstream media reports on it. And Brian Stelter is one of the worst journalists in the history of journalism. So that's one of the reasons I created this channel, because I see how terrible and disgusting the media is. That's why I do what I do. So that's all I gotta say for this video. I really appreciate you watching. If you like the content, like and subscribe to the channel, turn on the post notifications so you know I post videos in the future. But I gotta leave you with one more thing before the video is over, and that's the word of the day. The word of the day for today is apartheid. Apartheid is spelled A-P-A-R-T-H-E-I-D. The definition of apartheid is a policy or system of segregation or discrimination on the grounds of race. So now I will attempt to use apartheid in a sentence. It is extremely clear that Israel is an apartheid state. And we need to call out politicians who are not calling it for what it is. Hopefully I use that in the sentence correctly. So again, if you like the content, like and subscribe to the channel, turn on the post notifications so you know when I post videos in the future, because YouTube will not show you my videos if you do not turn on the post notifications. All of them. So, and use apartheid in the comments section below in a sentence so I know you watched the video until the end. So again, I really appreciate you watching the video. 100% this. Peace.
Well, I've been stacking up. Nah, really that ain't accurate, cause I just spent my whole damn advance in the past couple months just to compensate for times we ain't have enough. Ooh.